Hey Wade City kids and all of our friends out there online, happy Easter. I'm Mr. James.
And I'm Miss Danielle, and we're so excited that you're joining us for our special Easter episode. The story of Easter gives us hope not only on Easter weekend, but every day of our lives.
And we have so much planned for today. So kids, are you ready to jump into our lesson? All right, let's go. Do you kids at home know why we celebrate Easter? Easter is all about...
Chocolate!
Freddie, can you please eat that somewhere else? And yes, we do love eating chocolate and candy on Easter. But I'm talking about the meaning why we celebrate Easter in the first place. As I was saying, Easter is all about...
Egg Oops, let me go clean that up.
Okay, anyway. We celebrate Easter because...
Mommy! I'm gonna need help for this one. Hit it, guys!
The bunny, oh, I love the bunny. I don't love my soup or my bread, just the bunny.
Bunnies are cool. Yes, I love the bunny.
Freddie, let me just stop you right there. Is that an old VeggieTales song?
So what if it is?
Okay, as I was saying, Easter is all about... Okay, he's done. Easter is all
Easter
about...
basket! Yes, Mr. James, Easter basket!
Okay, Freddie, I know it is so much fun to celebrate Easter with candy and Easter egg hunts and chocolate and of course Easter baskets, but that's not the reason why we celebrate. I tell you what, how about you listen really closely while Miss Danielle and Lily read us the Easter story, and then we can talk about it afterwards, okay?
Okay, sounds good.
All right.
Are you ready to hear the Good Friday Easter story?
Mommy, why is it called Good Friday?
Well, you see, God sent his son down to earth for a very special purpose. A rescue mission to save the whole world, but that wouldn't come without a cost.
I thought Easter was a happy story.
It is, sweetie. In order to get to the happy part in all the celebration, something very sad had to happen first. And that very sad thing happened on the day that we call Good Friday.
So without the sad part, there will be no happy part?
Exactly, sweetie.
Okay, so where did the sad part start?
Well, after Palm Sunday, the Jewish leaders had dragged Jesus from the garden and had taken him to the high priest's house, a man named Caiaphas. And now they were going to put Jesus on trial, but it wasn't going to be a fair trial because they had all sorts of witnesses that were going to lie and testify against Jesus.
Why did they want you to do that?
You'll see, sweetie. Not everyone believed that Jesus was who he said he was. The trial went on. Finally, the high priest said, "I charge you under oath by the living God. Tell us if you are the Christ, the Son of God." Jesus answered, "Yes, it is as you say." Aha! Now they had him. For according to Jewish law, saying something like that was a sin against God. It was basically saying, "I am God." After spending all night putting Jesus on trial, the Jewish leaders dragged Jesus to the Roman governor. His name was Pilate. But after questioning Jesus, Pilate couldn't find that he'd done anything wrong and wanted to let him go. But the Jewish leaders went out and got the crowds of people to shout, demanding that he be killed. "Crucify him," they shouted. "Crucify him!" When Pilate saw that he was getting nowhere, but that instead an uproar was starting, he handed Jesus over to be flogged and crucified. But before taking him to nail him to the cross, they put a purple robe on him and gathered around him and pretended to bow down and worship him. They mocked him and made fun of him. When they got to the top of what they called Golgotha, they laid Jesus on the cross. They hammered the nails through his hand into the cross behind him. And as he hung there, crowds of people gathered and made fun of him. "If you're the Son of God, save yourself."
Why didn't Jesus save himself, Mommy?
Now you have to understand, sweetie, Jesus could have saved himself. He could have called down armies of angels to fight for him and free him. He's God's son. But he chose to go through all this because he loved his followers so much, because he loved you so much. This was the very purpose he came to earth. Darkness fell all across the land for 3 straight hours, even though it was the middle of the afternoon. And finally, Jesus, who had hung on the cross like that for 3 hours, said his final words, "It is finished." In the moment of his death, earthquakes pounded and lightning struck, and even the guards watching him, who had teased him and beat him a few hours before, were amazed and said, "Truly, this man was the Son of God." They took Jesus' body down and buried him in a tomb. Then they rolled a large stone over the entrance to the tomb. The disciples and Jesus' followers were so sad. But the best part of the story is coming up.
You mean the happy part after the sad part? Why do we have to guard the tomb of a dead guy?
Anthony, we've been over this.
It just doesn't make sense. What a waste of time.
You remember what they told us. Pilate ordered that they make this tomb as secure as possible. That's why they have a seal on the tomb and they have us here guarding.
Yeah. This Jesus said he will rise from the dead. And they're worried that his followers might steal his body? This is just nonsense.
Stop complaining, Anthony. This is the easiest job we'll ever get paid for.
I guess you're right. Well, what happened next?
On the first day of the week, very early in the morning, the women took the spices they had prepared and went to the tomb. But when they arrived, they saw that the stone, which was very large, had been rolled away. But when they entered, they did not find the body of the Lord Jesus. While they were wondering about this, suddenly 2 men in clothes that gleamed like lightning stood beside them. He looked for the living among the dead. He is not here. He has risen. Remember how he told you while he was still with you in Galilee. The Son of Man must be delivered over to the hands of sinners, be crucified, and on the 3rd day be raised again. Then they remembered his words. When they came back from the tomb, they told all these things to the 11 and to all the others.
They must have been so excited.
Well, at first they didn't believe it. But on the evening of the first day of the week, Jesus came and stood among them. "Peace be with you," he said. After this, he showed them his hands and his side. The disciples were overjoyed when they saw the Lord. Over the next 40 days, Jesus appeared at least 10 times after he rose from the dead. After the Lord Jesus had spoken to them, he was taken up into heaven, and he sat at the right hand of God. Then the disciples went out and preached this good news everywhere they went. And that is the story of Easter.
That's my favorite story.
Mine too.
Wow, Mr. James. It's hard to find words to describe just how powerful that story is.
You see, Freddie, to have fun with all the candy and the eggs and all the special activities, we need to take time to remember why we celebrate.
Wow, and that just makes the celebration and festivities all the more special, Mr. James. I've got to go share this story with my other friends.
Great idea, Freddie. So happy to see you today. Happy Easter. And kids, can we say bye, Freddie? Bye! So do you understand what happened that very first Easter? Now remember how we celebrate on the very first Christmas that God sent his very own son into the world as a baby.
That baby would grow up to one day sacrifice himself for the sins of the whole world. That's the whole reason why he came, so that whoever believes in him will have everlasting life.
Romans 10:9 says that if you confess with your mouth the Lord Jesus and believe in your heart that God has raised him from the dead, you will be saved.
And that's why we celebrate this story not only on Easter, but on every day of the year. For because he lives, we can truly live. And because he defeated death, we can too.
That reminds us of our verse this week. You guys did an amazing job again and sent in your video, so let's check it out.
1 Corinthians 15:3 and 4.
1 Corinthians 15, verses 3 and 4.
1 Corinthians 15, 3 through 4.
Christ died for our sins.
Christ died for our sins.
Christ died for our sins.
Christ died for our sins. Christ died for our sins.
Christ died for our sins.
Christ died for our sins.
Christ died for our sins.
Christ died for our sins.
According to the scriptures.
According to the scriptures.
That he was buried,
And that he rose again on the 3rd day.
And he was buried.
And he rose again on the 3rd day.
And that he was buried And then he rose again on the third day.
That he was buried and he was raised on the third day.
And that he was buried and rose again on the third day.
And he was buried and he rose again on the third day.
Whoop, whoop. That he was buried, that he was rose again on the third day.
And that he was buried
And then he rose again on the third day, according to the scriptures.
According to the scriptures.
According to the script.
1 Corinthians 15:3-4.
Great job, everyone. And that is the great news and the gospel of Easter. And that's why we celebrate. From our family to yours, Happy
Happy
Easter!
Easter!
Bye.